Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Exercise Engineer. This week we are doing a Q&A session. So I put a question box on my Instagram. I've also got questions from my clients as well. So if you ever see one of those question boxes and you want to get your question on this podcast, make sure you fill in a question and I'll be sure to answer it. The plan is to do one of these Q&A sessions every fortnight and then slot in some other interviews with other people and guests in between those. So I'm going to get started with one that I got from the Instagram question box, which is quite a deep one. I didn't actually answer it on Instagram, or I haven't done yet anyway, but it is: compare yourself to this time last year. What are you most proud of? And I just think this one is it's an interesting one to ask yourself on I think a regular basis. This should be asked. But I just, firstly, the thing that comes to mind is this time last year, I was working as an engineer on Old Street Roundabout. I was building my business on the side. I was getting up early at 5 a.m. to film workouts for my business every single morning without fail before going to work. I was currently training for the London Marathon as well at this time, and I was talking about wanting to live in Australia or talking about wanting to live abroad. So I guess the first thing that I'm proud of is that I actually took the leap and that I was actually able to walk the walk instead of just talking the talk. Like, I know so many people that always say, oh, I'd love to do that, and I do it as well. We all do it all the time, where we say, oh, I wish I could do that, or oh my God, I would love to do that, I would kill to do that. And I'm just so proud that I actually did manage to take that leap and just get on with it. So that's the first thing I'm proud of. Obviously, like, this whole episode isn't just about me, what I'm proud of. This is just the first question. I'll move on soon. But I don't think I've necessarily achieved as much as I would have liked to by now, from living in Australia. Maybe this is just down to expectation. It's not necessarily keeping myself accountable. Like, I still feel like I live on holiday most of the time. So it's definitely an interesting one. But I'm proud that I can personally help people and change people's lives for the better. So, like, as an engineer, yes, technically you could argue that I was changing people's lives because I was building a roundabout. And yes, you need engineers to help general life, civilization, like everything you see that we use during the day, every day, an engineer has been involved in the making and creation of that. So yes, I loved being an engineer, but I love how much I can help people on a much personal level now. Like, every day I get to help women all over the world feel their best, get stronger. Like, the messages I receive saying that I've changed their life, that are not just because they've lost weight, but like maybe they're more confident, they enjoy social events more. They love wearing their bikinis on holidays, they don't binge eat anymore, their mood is better every single day. And maybe I've even had, like, they got a promotion because they were then confident enough to apply for it. Like, before they weren't confident enough. They probably had the same qualifications, but they weren't confident enough to apply, and now they are, and they got it. And I just think it is so wild that women all over the world are doing my workouts, and it does baffle me still, but I guess I'm just so proud of that. I'm proud that I can call myself an entrepreneur, a business owner, a fitness coach. I'm just so proud of all of those things, and just the message that I receive every day over Instagram from my clients. I'm just proud that I inspire people every day to be their best, run, build muscle, fuel their body well, get outside. Like, it increases their mood. Yeah, I'm just so proud of all of those things, I guess. But just one on the actual question, like, compare yourself to this time last year. I think it's really important that all of us reflect on things like this, because it's so easy to just let the years fly by. I can't believe I've nearly been here I've been in Australia for 8 months now, and that has gone ridiculously quickly. So without just taking that step back and being like, right, okay, what have I achieved this past year? And if you haven't achieved what you thought you would have done by now, why haven't you achieved that? Is that a business goal? Is that a health and fitness goal? Is it a fat loss goal? A personal goal? I don't know. I think you can apply this to absolutely everything. So I just think this is a really, really solid question, and I thank you, the person who asked me this. It is really, really beneficial just to step back and reflect. Like, I spent quite a while thinking about this question, because yes, I'm proud of everything I have achieved, but I'm also like, right, why aren't I where I thought I could be by now? And another question that I heard get asked on a podcast years ago that's clearly stuck with me was, if someone with your qualifications had the same opportunities as you, would they have achieved more by now? And usually the answer is yes. So it's like, right, okay, pull your socks up, let's get on with it. Okay, get on with the actual podcast, shall we? How to prevent burnout was another one from my question box. And I think people often confuse committing 100% to something with completely overdoing it. So like listening to business podcasts, there's so many people out there who have no downtime and just thrive when they fully commit to stuff and they don't burn out. But it's like, how do you not do that? And I think it all comes down to, it's all not like your balance, because there's some people who have zero balance, zero chill. So let's just cover what I think commitment is. So the definition of commitment is the state of being dedicated to a cause or an activity. So commitment to my business, to my health, my work, my family, my friends, my happiness. So asking yourself, what are you currently committed to? And then when it comes to success in everything, I think it comes down to who has stuck at it the longest. It's not necessarily how hard you stick at something, it's it's sustainability. Like, how long has that person been committed? How long is that journey? So literally, who's got the most reps in? It's exactly like building muscle. Who has done the most reps? Who has committed the most to the process and just is in for the journey, pretty much, not just in for the goal right at the end or like the answer. So you need to commit to long term. That's the number one commitment when it comes to burnout as well. Like, often we'll cover burnout in a little bit more detail, but often with burnout is people commit to too much instead of the time frame. So I think it's really important that yes, you do still stay engaged, because it's the people who don't stay engaged to the process and have excuses and who don't fully immerse themselves in the process. So if I, for example, relate this question to my clients, the clients that succeed the most are the ones that fully commit. They're the ones that accept that it's going to be a long-term process. They don't think it's going to be a quick fix diet. They join the challenge knowing that after the 6 weeks, they're going to have to still put in the work. Like, there's no point joining a 6-week challenge if you think after the 6 weeks, all your problems are going to disappear and you're going to be able to go straight back to the start and like exactly how you were. Like, no, the 6-week challenge is to help you build the right foundations so that you can continue on your own to being a successful, healthy, fit person. So it's all about building those foundations for a start, but it's understanding that you need to commit long term. And the people who don't get results are the people that aren't engaged. They have excuses. They don't fully immerse themselves in that process and they give up easily. Like, there's no point joining something if you know you give up easily. But then you could also argue that it's like you've not given yourself the correct times. You've not committed. You've not set your expectations right. So you need to be willing to put the work in when you join something like that. But the best thing you can do for yourself, for any goal whatsoever, is to fully immerse yourself in the process, fully commit to it. And that is all about being dedicated. That's what the word commitment comes down to. It's the state of being dedicated to a cause or an activity. So let's compare that with burnout, which is more of a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion. So like it's usually caused by excessive and prolonged stress. So symptoms include fatigue, insomnia, feelings of inadequacy, addiction. You can get loneliness, anger, illness, short attention span. And then when it comes to fat loss, I think when people burn out, it's because they take on too much too soon, and it's just not sustainable. And actually that's not necessarily fat loss, that can be absolutely everything. If you start running and you just start running 10k every single day, and it's like, that's not sustainable. If you start a new job and you just say yes to taking on every piece of work and every project, it's not sustainable. You're not going to be able to put your best effort into each of those things. So it's really important that you do manage all of it well. So like a lot of people looking at my workload, especially when I was an engineer as well, running a business, training for a marathon, filming workouts, yes, you might think I was in a state of overload and burnout, but for someone maybe starting out that process, it will have been burnout. But for me, because I'd built it over a long period of time, I'd added to that more and more and more. So I started off, yes, as an engineer. Then I started introducing workouts. Then I started introducing my business. Then I started introducing the marathon training. And it all just built from there. I didn't just start everything all at once. Like it's over a long period of time. And yeah, it's about getting your reps in. So yeah, get your reps in as an engineer first. And then get your reps in doing the workouts on top of being an engineer. Then you get your reps in doing all your business stuff on top of, and it just builds like that. So your body will get used to the varying stress levels. And it's like asking yourself, what's the most I can do and still recover from? So, and that is the best way to get results that last. So yes, you might think, yes, I need to do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G as well. Like there's so many different ways you can approach fat loss, for example. And if you try everything all at once, it's probably not going to work because you won't be able to sustain it. You can't recover from it. Exactly the same with business. If you can't have those rest days and downtime, you're not going to be able to sustain it long term. So it's all about asking yourself, what's the most you can do and still fully recover from it? That's the question you need to be asking yourself. And then it comes down to the importance of goals and expectations. Like, yes, they can change throughout, but at least it gives you a direction or like that first trajectory, because without goals, you're much more likely to procrastinate. That's why I set myself daily targets every single day, like hit a certain number of pieces of work to do. So important that you do set those goals. And that's why when I first get a client on board, we talk about their ultimate goal. I'm talking like 2+ years. I want you picturing yourself in 2 years' time. Where do you want to be in all of that? Then you strip it all back. So it's like, right, okay, 2 years' time, that's where we need to be. In this 6 months, what do we need to achieve to make sure we're on the right trajectory in order to get us there in 2 years? Then you strip that back even more to a weekly goal. How many calories, how many steps, how many workouts a week are we hitting? And then you strip it back even more to daily targets. So of those weekly step targets, how many a day do we need to do? And it's like, yes, you can have a daily step goal, but it does average over the week. Same with your calories, same with your workouts, runs, etc. And you can apply that to business as well. So have your 2-year business goal, and then it's like, right, okay, in this 6 months, what do I need to achieve? How many clients do I need to sign? How many workouts do I need to film in order to make sure I'm there in 2 years? And strip it back again. So this week, what do I need to achieve in order to get those 6-month goals, to get the 2-year goals? So yes, it's all about goals, but it's about expectations on yourself as well, and it's moving in the right direction. It doesn't matter if you do decide to change your goals halfway. As long as you are heading in the right direction, you can skew the path if you need en route. You can change up the methodology en route. You can change the plan. But what do you need to do this week to get you closer to that goal? Do not get stuck in motion. You need to take action. Every single time, it's because people think they're taking action and they're not. They often just put a little bit of research into something. It's like, oh, I feel good today, I did a bit of research. And it's like, no, did you actually action anything? No. Okay, that was a long-winded question, sorry guys. This one's going to be a little bit shorter. Do you have rest days? Yes, it's important to have rest days. It's important to recover properly. When it comes to rest though, this all depends on your current exercise regime, your current exercise stimulus, and how much you are used to resting. So yes, I very, very rarely rest at the moment, to be honest. I'm either doing some form of strength training or cardio or high rocks. If I do rest, I still make sure I get my steps in. I am still physically active during the day, and I keep myself feeling good outside, all the good stuff there as well. But again, it comes down to what your body is used to. So 3 years ago, I'll have had a lot more rest days than I do now. Like, I very rarely have one now, but that's because I've built my body. My body's tolerance to exercise, to cardio, to strength training is much, much bigger than what it used to be. So I can now work out more and need less rest, if that makes sense. And then you've got to think about, what are you actually doing for recovery? So it's not just about resting, it's about actually recovering. So is your nutrition down? Like, are you maximizing your recovery with your nutrition? Have you got plenty of protein in there? Carbs to refuel your glycogen stores? Are you eating plenty of fat, all your essential fatty acids? Especially important for women to make sure we are regulating our hormones properly. So there are so many things to do with your nutrition. Then it comes down to your sleep. Are you sleeping enough? That is when our body is doing its maximum repairing, while you're sleeping. Are you getting enough sunlight, getting all your vitamin D in? Are you having enough downtime? All of those things will incorporate into your rest days to make sure you are resting properly so you can prevent injury, unlike myself. Do as I say, not as I do. Okay, next question. How do I stop the 3 p.m. snack craving? I always want something sweet at this time. Okay, first of all, I always ask, are you eating enough for breakfast and lunch? Are you actually truly satiated from those meals? If you're not, chances are that's when you're going to reach for those. You're craving energy pretty much at that point. So your body is literally reaching for high sugary foods, high fatty foods, things that they know is going to produce plenty of energy in the body. Secondly, are you just bored? That usually comes down to 3 p.m. is usually around boredom eating time, where you've done a good chunk of your work the day and it's like, yeah, I'm coming to the end. You feel that the end of the day is close by, and you get a little bit bored with maybe the work that you're doing. So try and distract yourself somehow else. Have more water, go for a walk. Just distract yourself in a different way. If you are actually hungry, eat something else. Maybe try removing carbs at lunchtime as well, because often if we have too many carbs at lunch, this is going to spike your insulin levels, and then you will get that post-carb slump that most of us endure mid-afternoon around 3 p.m, where we're like, we just need another little pick-me-up, another little sweet treat at that time. So, and sometimes this comes down to habit as well. So a lot of the time we are just so used to having a snack at 3 p.m. If you've been having a snack for the past 2 years at 3 p.m. because you're in the office and that's just what you do, that's what everyone else does, then that 3 p.m. habit snack is a habit, and you either need to crush the habit or manage the habit. So planning your snack into your day, use it as something to either enjoy or look forward to instead of something that you need. And then you can make sure it's in line with your calorie targets, with your macro targets. If you plan that snack, you can be like, right, I have my protein bar at 3 p.m. So therefore, you go out, you buy a protein bar at 3 p.m. That is your snack. You know it's coming and you know it's in line with your goals. Because people often try and just remove that afternoon snack, and it can be difficult, so you can like wean yourself off it and reduce the amount of snacks. But I would definitely try planning the snack, especially if you enjoy that mid-afternoon snack. There's no point getting rid of it. You don't need to remove that snack if you want it there, and if you look forward to it. Just maybe change what you are snacking on and remove the feeling of guilt after having the snack, because if it's in line with your goals, you've got no reason to feel guilty from having that snack. Because usually if we are snacking, we do feel guilty after a snack because it's like, oh, I didn't really need that, blah, blah, blah. But if it's in line with your goals, crack on, and then you won't feel the guilt. We shouldn't feel guilt after any food anyway, but that's a different time. That's a different lesson for a different time. Okay, thoughts on creatine monohydrate as a supplement. Okay, this is the most researched supplement. I've been through this in quite a lot of detail in a different episode, so I'm just going to quickly brush over it today. So creatine has been researched quite extensively. It helps with performance, cognitive function, strength and power related. It will help build lean muscle mass with obviously resistance training. You can't just take it and it'll build muscle mass. You need to resistance train as well. You also need to drink enough water with it. Just get the hydrate. So yeah, definitely try it if you haven't before. It'll take about a month to get into your system. As women, we only need about 1 to 3 grams of it per day. So avoid it with caffeine, and remember that you will get a potential weight gain from it, but that is because it pretty much just holds on to the water in your muscles. So like, you know how a full water bottle feels compared to an empty water bottle, it's that fuller effect. So it just makes your muscles feel fuller. It's the same as like pressing down on a full water bottle, if you will, if that makes sense. So I think it's a great supplement. There's so much research that's gone into it, and there's only real benefits from it. I should probably get this again. I did used to have it, but yeah, totally up to you. Okay, exercise recommendations to get rid of bingo wings. Okay, we cannot spot reduce fat. If you do want to lose fat from your arms, we need to lose fat from the whole body. So you need to be in a calorie deficit at the end of the day and at the end of the week over the average. So really important that you are in a calorie deficit. You know your calorie intake for the day, whether you track or not. You don't need to track. It just makes it slightly easier to make sure you are in a calorie deficit. You need to be strength training. Super important if you want lean muscle mass in that area. If you want the area to turn up, you need to be strength training. Build muscle in those areas. It will equate to a much leaner area. But again, once the fat has gone. So you can't just, if you eat whatever you want and then start strength training just your arms, you might be in a calorie surplus, meaning you are putting on a rapid amount, well, not really rapid, because as females it takes us a while to build muscle anyway, but you would just be building muscle in that area, which is good, but you wouldn't be losing the fat that you need to lose in order to remove the bingo wings in the first place. I'm not saying you have bingo wings, just saying that's what you called them. Anyway, so yeah, cannot spot reduce fat, unfortunately. Don't worry, I've tried many a times. You can't. You've just got to lose it all over the body. The easiest way to create a calorie deficit is to increase your NEAT, which is your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This is everything we do that's not our set exercise for the day. So moving more, going out for more walks, cleaning, fidgeting, cooking, all of those things are gonna add up to your NEAT like just me moving my arms now as I'm speaking, that's all going to contribute to our NEAT activity. And the more NEAT we have, the easier it is to hit that calorie deficit number. Yes, cool. I've always struggled with going over my calories when tracking. Okay, so this doesn't sound like a tracking issue. This is more of an adherence issue, which tells me that your calories might be too low for you. So firstly, if this was one of my clients, I would increase their calorie target by a few hundred to start with and see if they can then stick to that. So more often than not, if you just use any calorie calculator online, especially MyFitnessPal one, it will just give you a ridiculously low amount of calories. I know a lot of people have come to me saying, oh, I keep trying to stick to 1200 calories and it's impossible. It's like, yeah, of course it's impossible, because that's a child's portion of food. That's not even enough for your body to survive on a daily basis before you walk or do anything. So just to put some numbers out there, my body, obviously this is just my body personally and everyone is different, but my body is about 1400 calories if I just laid down all day and did absolutely nothing. Just my body to be alive and functioning, my body burns 1400 calories. This will be very similar depending on your height, your weight, your age, your sex, your body composition. So the more muscle you have, this number will increase slightly as well, because muscle uses more energy to survive on the body than fat does. But so obviously like 1400 calories I need before I even lift an arm or start eating or anything along those lines. So really important that you are not just eating 1200 calories. That is a child's portion of food. So I would start by increasing that by a few hundred, seeing if you can then stick to that. This, by the way, will probably still be under your maintenance calories. So my maintenance, therefore, is my so-called coma calories, that I call them, if like the calories that my body would burn if I did absolutely nothing all day. That plus my activity levels are going to be my maintenance calories. Those are the calories that I burn on a daily basis with my activity involved in it. This is your TDEE, which is your total daily energy expenditure. That is also known as your maintenance calories. So then if you want to create a deficit from that, that's where we minus 300 to 500 calories to create that deficit, and therefore that is your calorie goal if you want to lose fat, if you are in a calorie deficit. If then you go over your calorie goal by 200 calories, you are still in a calorie deficit because you are still under your maintenance calories. So when people go over their calories when they're tracking, yes, people might go over your calories, but you've got to remember you are still either in a calorie deficit or you've just scraped maintenance, unless you quite severely overeat and you know you've gone way over your calories. Usually we're still within a calorie deficit and you will still see progress if you eat slightly over. So yes, you can eat over your calorie goal every day and still lose fat. It will just take longer to get there, but it's still doable. You are still in a deficit, therefore you are still using more calories than you are consuming. I feel like I rambled on that one, but I hope that makes a lot more sense. Now, like, yes, tracking is very beneficial, but you don't need to track. It's just very good to understand portion sizes, especially right at the start, weighing your food out and actually understanding how much exactly you are eating in terms of all that stuff. And then also just a quick one on that, I touched on it earlier as well, but if you're going over your calories, are you eating technically, am I going to say it, the right food? So are we eating 80% of the time whole foods that are going to keep us feeling satiated, that are going to make us feel good? You can technically eat a McDonald's every day and lose weight, but you are making it a hell of a lot harder for yourself if you include foods like that into your diet, because you are going to feel bloated. You are going to feel like you will end up craving more of it because you need more energy, because those foods don't keep you satiated and they're not fueling your body in a way that it needs. So making sure 80% of the time you are eating high protein, high fiber, whole foods, plenty of colour in them, lots of nutrients. Really important that you stick to that 80% of the time. And then 20% of the time, if you want the donut, go eat the donut. I heard a really, really good analogy of this, and it's, yes, you can technically run a marathon in flip-flops. Yeah, technically you can do it. But chances are you're going to injure yourself along the way, and it's going to be a hell of a lot harder, and it's going to take longer. If you have the correct trainers, i.e. if you have a better diet, it's going to be a hell of a lot easier, you're less likely to injure yourself, and you're going to get there a lot quicker because you are taking more of the right steps to get there. And you're just making it easier for yourself, guys. Just make it as easy as possible to get from A to B, and you're more likely to stick to it, sustain it long term. Woo! Okay, next question. Best way to build pace now I can run 10k. Okay, so this is exciting. This was is a client. We built her up from literally a complete beginner runner. She can now run 5k, she can now run 10k quite happily. And now she wants to increase her pace, ready for a race in a couple of months. So really, really exciting for this one. So what we're going to do actually is increase the distance still. And I know this sounds a bit backwards because you're like, well, I can hit the 10k, why would I want to run further? But the 10k will seem so much easier if you can run 15k. So being able to increase pace for the 10k, knowing that you can run 15, is going to really benefit you, and it just helps with overall cardio fitness as well. Track sessions, interval sessions. She already had a few intervals in there, but we're going to really work those different energy systems now and really make sure she is pushing in those intervals and not just practicing the feeling of being uncomfortable, because that is another really good tip when it comes to races. So this will be her first race, practicing that feeling that you are going to be uncomfortable the whole time. If you are pushing yourself and you're trying to get a particular time, you know that you're going to be pushing yourself that whole time. So practicing that feeling of uncomfort is going to really be crucial in hitting the time that she wants to hit. So really going for those intervals is going to really benefit that. And practicing running at the pace that you want to as well. So building in time trials. You can practice things like this at Park Run, where you know that it's bang on 5k and there's other people there that are in that race sort of feeling. And that can really help to push yourself as well, because when you're running with other people who are trying to get PBs, really beneficial. There are other run clubs as well. So I go to Mega Run. This is a 10k one where people really push themselves and aim for that 10k PB as well. So finding things out there that are gonna help you to build that and push you on a weekly basis to try and beat your time is gonna really benefit you as well. Okay, so this is the last question. I feel like I've bashed through these today. Well done me. Any tips for beginner runners to learn to pace properly? So this is another client who has just started, and she said she wants to start dabbling in the running. So we've started her on 2 runs a week. One sort of more, not quite as intense as an interval session, but a little bit more where we can push that feeling of a little bit more pacey and then being able to strip it back. So firstly, what I've started with is the easy run pace. This isn't me being patronising, saying you should be running at an easy pace and saying that pace is going to be rubbish. It should genuinely feel easier than what you think running should feel like. So you should be able to speak full sentences. And if you can't, if you feel like you are struggling and really gasping for breath, you need to slow down. That's not a conversational pace. You need to bring that heart rate down, get your breathing under control, and be able to speak full sentences. That is your easy pace, that is your zone 2 pace. So you don't need to focus on the zones necessarily, especially as a beginner runner. We just need to practice being on the feet, getting miles in, and practicing that breathing, getting it all under control pretty much. So a really good tip for this is to start off slower. Like really start off slower than you think. Like it might feel ridiculously slow, but start off slower than you think, and then you can always build into that pace. So what a lot of, I know we're not talking about becoming marathon athletes from this question, but a lot of people in races do a negative split. So they will start off slower and you build into the race. You get quicker and quicker with every mile or kilometre until the last one where you are at your maximum pace. So really important that we know these different paces, but as a beginner runner, you don't need to know this. What we need to focus on is just becoming comfortable running and breathing and conversing at the same time. Just literally practice. Even if you're running on your own, just try running and talking to yourself out loud. Try and say full sentences, and if you can't, slow down the pace slightly. Then we can start to build in some intervals where you can experience what it should feel like to be pushing your body a little bit more. So you run at an RPE, which is your rate of perceived exertion, at more of like a 7 to 9 instead of a 4 to 6, which is our easy pace. So 4 is about a warm up, 5 to 6 is like your easy pace, and then we've got 7 to 9, which is really pushing it a bit more, your zone 3, and then 10 being like a full sprint, max effort, cannot physically run any quicker. We don't want to be hitting a 10, especially as a beginner runner. You do not need to be up there, but you do need to be practicing what it feels like to become uncomfortable, and then that makes your easy run seem easier. So you'll understand the easy run pace if you build in those intervals where you're like, actually, that is me giving it a good welly. That's not my easy run pace. So just dabbling with a few different paces and noting times, how you're feeling, your recovery rates from all of that. That's the best tips I can give for beginner runners, really. And making sure you are slightly distracted. I know a lot of beginner runners are like, oh, I just hate running. My brain is just telling me the whole time to stop running. And yes, it will, because your brain is like, what are you doing? Why are you running? We need to start conserving energy here. What if there's a lion or something we need to run away from later? That is your brain being like, nah, what are you doing? Stop. So what we do is practice the art of running and practice the art of ignoring your brain, because you need to trust your body that you can do it. And this is where we practice the reps. Everything I've spoken about in this is just repetition, getting the reps in, proving to yourself you can do it. And therefore, if you keep going, you're more likely to be able to keep going for longer. Always pushing it that extra step. So when your brain is telling you to stop, when you push past that and don't listen to it, you are giving yourself that token. You are proving to yourself that you can do it. So next time that voice comes around, you know that you've already ignored it before, so you can ignore it again, and then again, and again, and again. And that is how we become resilient to ignoring the brain that's there to save us, really. It's there to keep us alive. So of course it wants you to conserve as much energy as possible, but we need to be really focusing on pushing that voice down, especially when it comes to running. I say a lot of the time, like, when your brain is telling you to stop, you're only at 40%. So just reminding yourself that for a start, like knowing that your body is capable of so much more than you think, is really going to help you get there. So I hope you found that really beneficial, guys. If you ever see my Instagram at The Exercise Engineer and I put a question box up, make sure to get your questions in there and I will answer them in probably next week or the week after. So just keep your eye open for that. If you really enjoyed this podcast episode and you think anyone would benefit from it, please send this to one person you know would benefit from this. And please remember to like, subscribe, share the podcast, and I will love you and leave you there, guys. See you next week. Thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye. Bye.